In today's show, I'm going to look back at the top 20 players for fantasy basketball to begin this season. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. We are over a week into the NBA season, so this is something I'm going to do once a week. And look back to see who the top 20 players are. I think a lot of it's just for fun, just to see how things are tracking. The top 20 players in category leagues and the top 20 players in points leagues. At the moment, we're doing season to date. Once the season moves on, we'll do a last 2-week period to see some trending players and how things are going. So let's do that. Let's start off with the top 20 players in category leagues. At number one, no one's going to be surprised. It's James Harden. He is the number one player. He's averaging 37, 5, and 11. He's shooting 52 from the field and 89 from the line. His value is at massive threes, massive scoring, massive assists, and massive free throw percentage. So he is the number one player. He is marginally, or not marginally, he's a fair distance ahead of the player in number 2 spot, and that is, of course, Big Chungus. Nicole Yokic is averaging a triple-double, 25, 12, and 14, 1.5 steals, 1 block, 1 3, 63 and 80, like monster numbers. And people will think that he is the better fantasy option than James Harden. But the fact that Harden is averaging 37 points at this point is what, and the massive discrepancy in three-pointers is what puts Yokic above. But he is great, and the difference between Harden and Jokic is significantly smaller than the difference between Jokic and the number 3 player, which is Karl Anthony Towns. He's only played 2 games. He's out with his wrist issue. He only played 30 minutes a night, but 19, 11, and 5 with 3 blocks and wasn't even shooting that well. When he comes back, he's going to be pretty good. At number 4, it's Kevin Durant. Really just amazed to see Durant and how good he's looked so far. He's averaging 28 points at number 4. And number 5 is the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
Kawhi's averaging almost 6 assists, 3 steals, 94 from the line. Just really ridiculous numbers. No one has too many concerns with that top 5, I wouldn't have thought. At number 6, it's Steph Curry, who started out a little bit rusty, but he's averaging 27 with 7 assists and 3.5 threes, and still, he's only hitting 32% of his threes, so he can get better. At number 7, to the big surprise, CJ McCullum. Over 6 assists per game, I imagine that comes down. 92 from the line, I imagine that comes down. 28 scoring points, that's the word, 28 points per game, and over 5.5 threes because he's hitting 48% of his threes. That is going to come down and he's going to drop out of there. At number 8 is Kyrie. At number 9 is Miles Turner, blocking over 4 shots per game, and the minutes are pushing up as well. I don't expect him to be this good, but he's hitting 93% of his free throws as well. And at number 10, it's Trey Young, and this is about the right spot for Trey. 33 and 8, 51 and 90 from the line on a ridiculous 15.5 free throw attempts per game. That's insanity. At number 11, it is Joel Embiid, averaging 26 and 12. At number 12, it's the crucifix, Christian Wood. 25 and 9, 1.7 blocks. Looked pretty good even with Cousins and Wall back. The 37 minutes a night are going to come down, and he's going to settle into that probably 20 to 35 range, but really, really good stuff. 13 is Paul George, the Beatle. People overreact to George's performances all the time. At number 14 is Chris Middleton. And another name that surprised me, Michael Porter Jr. at number 15. Why is he so high? Well, he's hitting almost 3 threes with 20 points and 7 rebounds and blocking 1.5 shots and 57% from the field. So a lot of positives there for Mick. Those blocks will probably come down and that will drop him out of this zone. But the minutes is going to be the key thing for Porter. The last part of the top 20 at number 16, it's Bradley Beal. That's fine. He's averaging 31 a game. At number 17, Victor Oladipo. 55% shooting is part of the reason, but 5 assists and 1.3 steals, along with 21 points and 3 threes a game. But he's shooting 54% on his threes. That is going to fall off. At number 18 is John Wall. It's only one game, but 22, 6, and 9. He looked great. And number 19, what the hell is going on? Alec Burks. Alec Burks at number 19, because in the 3 games he's played, he's averaging 21 points. He's shooting 53 from the field and 90% on almost 7 attempts from the line. That is why he is so high. The 3 threes, which are coming on 67% shooting, he is going to tumble, I guarantee you, but at the moment, this is where he is. And number 20 is Demar Derozan, who's just been rock solid, averaging over 8 assists per game. Maybe Derek White comes back and takes some of those assist opportunities away, but he has been spectacular to begin this season. That's your top 20 for category leagues. In points leagues, at number 1, it's Nicole Yokic. He's averaging 60 fantasy points per game. Number 2 is James Harden, who's at 59. And then number 3 is Andre Drummond. You'll notice Andre Drummond's name wasn't in the top 20 of category leagues. And this list will sort of show you the differences here. Drummond is averaging a monster 52 fantasy points per game, absolutely crushing it there. And number 4, another bloke who wasn't in the top 20 for category leagues, is Russell Westbrook, because of the damages both of those guys do to your percentages. And in the default points leagues, it makes no difference. Westbrook's averaging almost 51 points per game. Joel Embiid is number 5 in a points league. That's pretty straightforward, averaging 26 and 12 and almost 50 fantasy points per contest. At number 6 is Karl Anthony Towns. At number 7 is another guy that didn't crack the top 20 of category leagues, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
And because Giannis's percentages have been rough, especially his free throws and the volume there, but 48 fantasy points per game. Trey Young at number 8, Kawhi Leonard at number 9, and then another surprise entry. Number 10 is the big fella, Domantas Sabonis. 37 minutes a night for Sabonis. Now, no TJ Warren. He's going to get usage is going to keep up pretty high. 22 and 11 with over 7 assists. That might come down somewhat for Domantas, would be my guess at this point. At number 11, the Crucifix Christian Wood. We talked about him already. Brad Beal's averaging 46 fantasy points. He's the number 12 ranked player. And then you have Kevin Durant at number 13. We can contrast that to him being the 4th ranked player in categories, in large part because of his really good efficiency. And that's the difference again there. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the number 15 player, Steph Curry, in that efficiency and percentages and 3-pointers made contribute a lot to what they do versus how that doesn't really contribute as much in points leagues. Sandwiched in between the former teammates Durant and Curry at number 14 is CJ McCullum, who's still really rocking it in points leagues, not quite to the same extent that he does in a category league, but there he sits at number 14. Are there any surprises in the back end of the top 20 for points leagues? Let's have a look. At number 16, it's DeMar DeRozan. Yep, that's totally fine. At number 17, the double royal Julius Randle, who has been a massive surprise, averaging 23, 10, and 7, had shot the 3-ball well until Thursday's games, and in a points league, really can put up big numbers. And he gets no steals and blocks. He's under half a game for each of those two, but just massive minutes, almost 38 a night. Big volume points, big volume rebounds, big volume assists. He's a traditional, let's stuff the stats of the big 3 volume categories, and that's why he's really good in points leagues. Jaylen Brown is at number 18. His free throw percentage has been real tough on big volume, but we don't care about that in the points league. He's played 33 a night, averaging 28 points, and that is 44 fantasy points per game. In fact, him and Julius Randle are averaging exactly the same amount of fantasy points per game. At number 19, it's John Wall, who dropped 44, or 43.7 to be accurate, in his only game this season, and he looked pretty spry out there recovering from that Achilles injury. And then at number 20, a guy that's a top 10 categories player, but Kyrie Irving. Efficiency, 3-pointers, they're not as important in points leagues, and that's why he is down at number 20. You'll notice a name that didn't make either of those lists, Jason Tatum, LeBron James. Didn't see him in either. We didn't see Luka Doncic in any of those. We didn't see Devin Booker in any of those. We didn't see Damian Lillard in any of those lists. And I think people would be somewhat surprised because they're all players that you would have picked pretty high. But the start to their season has been somewhat quiet, and they will get better. They will continue to get better. But that is, at this point, after Thursday's action in the NBA, which is the end of the 2020 portion of the season. They are your top 20 performers in category leagues and your top 20 performers in points leagues. How many of those players did you have? Drop it in the comments below. Tweet it at me as well. And make sure you subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Hit that bell for notifications. Leave your comments. Tell me about it. I hope you guys enjoyed your New Year's. Hope you're safe. And I hope 2021 brings everything so much better for us than it was in 2020, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.